Well, it is really hard to believe, but it has been 13 and a half years since Goodyear released this tire. Now, obviously, this is the Goodyear Wrangler DuraTrac, and you've all seen this tire by now. But, I was thinking about this the other day. Is this still the best all around Jeep and 4x4 tire out there? I mean, it's really got some strong points going for it. Let's talk about this tire a little bit. So when this tire came out back in, well, it was debuted in early 2009, you got to remember that these tires, these hybrid tires, were not really the norm at the time. Now, certainly there were hybrid tires that existed long before Goodyear built this tire. Cooper had the ST, for example. One of their off-brands, Mastercraft, had a Corsair CT. There were several different brands that were making them. They used to be known as commercial traction tires. We didn't really call them hybrid tires back in the day. They were generally referred to as commercial traction tires, but it was the same thing. The principle was that you had sort of a cross between a mud terrain and an all-terrain. So those tires did exist, but generally they weren't heavily advertised. They certainly were not mainstream. They were usually marketed toward guys who use their trucks on construction sites or farmers or, the working guys, who were on and off road and just needed a little bit more traction than an all-terrain would offer. Lots of times they were sold through independent, small town tire dealers. And, there's certainly nothing wrong with that, but they just were not a mainstream tire. And when Goodyear debuted the DuraTrac, it really changed the game. I remember when this tire first came out, and when I saw this, and it was the same reaction that everybody had. It was like, holy cow. It was just really a radical departure from everything that we had seen so far. You've got these huge lugs out here on the sidewall, very aggressive. So if you get down in a rut, they really do grab and pull. You've got your choice between a really slick looking outlined white letter side, or the other side has black letters. So, you can do whatever you want there. It's got the rim lock around the bead. It protects your wheel, and it also prevents the tire from spinning on the wheel under really high torque environments. Obviously, you've got this really wild looking tread design where you have these closer tread blocks and a circumferential ring around the center of the tire to give you that smooth ride and the good fuel economy and all of that. But you've still got these huge blocks out here, and look how they're irregular. There's not really a whole lot of like a traditional symmetric pattern to this. These blocks kind of go all different directions and they're different sizes. So it was just a really wild looking tread design, but it works. You've got a lot of siping in here. They're pinned, so you can stud them if you live in an area where you get ice. And Goodyear introduced what they call tractive groove technology. Here's an up-close look at what Goodyear calls tractive groove technology. You can see these little teeth, miniature tread blocks, if you will, that are in between the main tread blocks. And they do provide some function to this tire, especially in sloppy conditions, where basically you've got tread in between the tread. There's like these little miniature teeth, if you want to call it that, and designs inside the tread here. And so what that does is it basically prevents the tire from having that suction effect. You get the mud on the tire, and then you drive over top of it, and it squishes all that mud into the tread. And there's like this suction effect, then the tire tries to hold on to that mud, and it won't clean itself very well. Well, all those little teeth in there, it sort of breaks up the surface so that it's not smooth, and it prevents that suction from holding the mud in there. And so that tractive groove technology actually gives you more traction than the nasty stuff. Just a lot of stuff here that we never had seen on a mainstream tire, and they advertised the heck out of this. And so this is the tire that really started what we know today as the hybrid classification of tires. Now, the very best thing about this tire, in my opinion, is that it's really lightweight. You know, nowadays in 2022, there's all kinds of hybrid tires out there, but most of them are going to be your heavier 10-ply rated tires, and the weights on them, you know, like this, for example, is a 33, and this DuraTrac weighs like low 50s, like 53 pounds, something like that. You know, all of the other brands that are making a tire in this size in that hybrid category are like well into the 60s, and some of them in the low 70s pounds per tire. So this is just a really lightweight tire too. It's got pretty good sidewalls in it. I mean, if you pinch them, you can feel that there's some thickness to the sidewall. They're kind of rugged. They're built, you know, heavy duty, but there's a lot of technology in this, you know, tire, in the carcass of the tire, that keeps it lightweight. And that is a really big deal. This is one of the lightest in weight tires in the whole segment, despite the fact that it's so aggressive. So, I mean, again, this is a 13-year-old design. It's been on the market for a long time now, and it still has so much going for it. You can buy these tires for less money typically than the other brands, and there's just so much going for it. It's also got the three-peak, or the three-peak mountain snowflake symbol, as they call it, on the sidewall here. So it's rated for severe snow use. I mean, again, there's just so much going for this tire. Now, like I said, this particular one is a 33. They offer a lot of different sizes in these, but this is a really common size that you would find on a lot of the off-road packages on Jeeps and pickup trucks nowadays. And I just find it very fascinating that all of these years later, this tire is probably still, in my opinion, one of the best all-around tires that you can buy. I did run a set of these in the past. I believe it was on that 2012 JK Wrangler that I had, the yellow one. I don't think that one has ever made an appearance on this channel. It was many years ago now, but I did buy a set of these in the 33 1250 flavor, ran them on that Jeep for a while. I can tell you that in the snow, these things are champs. I mean, they really do a great job in the snow. Now, I had them in, like I said, on that Jeep 33 1250, pretty wide footprint, and I had them at a low pressure, probably too low of a pressure for the street. I was running like upper 20s PSI, and if we got a really torrential rainstorm, I was not really happy with the performance. They tended to kind of pull, you know, they didn't really hydroplane, but they just really pulled on the steering wheel a lot, and that may have been my fault for running such low pressure. But most people report no issues in the rain with these. Like I said, in the wintertime, they're champs. Really great in the snow. I did get them in the mud and bogged the mud pretty hardcore with them, and they're not quite as good as a full-on mud terrain tire, but they're pretty daggone good. I mean, these things will sling some serious mud. I really believe that the way these tread blocks out here are designed, you can see how it kind of forms like a semicircle here. You know, each group of two tread blocks forms like a big semicircle. So in effect, if you can imagine this in your mind, basically like these two tread blocks are like one giant tread block, you know, and then you got the same thing here and the same thing here. And I think that really does a great job of grabbing in those ruts and throwing the mud around. I had good luck with them when I ran them in the mud. I had great luck with them in the snow. They were not really noisy on the road. After I had rotated them a couple of times, they started to get a little road noise in them, which is pretty typical for an aggressive tire, but they were not what I would call loud at all. Again, lightweight. They don't affect your fuel economy as much, which is a big deal these days. So, I mean, what's not to love about this tire, right? I mean, some people, for some reason, think that they're just super flimsy. They're not really flimsy. I mean, you can blow out a sidewall on anything, but, you know, for the most part, I have not seen any more trouble with these than I've seen with like KO2s or any of the other super popular tires. So, anyway, just a little snapback, or a flashback, I guess I should say, into the previous decade here. You know, these things have been selling really well for Goodyear, and they're still out there on the market. I got a hold of one here to look at for you guys, and I'm going to show you some close-ups of this tractive groove technology because it's actually pretty cool stuff. But, you know, if you guys have been running these DuraTracs for a while, why don't you post some comments below and let us know what you guys think about them. I'll tell you something else about these. I've seen guys get huge amounts of miles out of these. like surprising amounts of miles. I'm talking about road miles, like how many miles you get out of your tread. I've seen guys get 70,000 or more out of these tires. I know I wouldn't have believed it either if I hadn't seen it, but I've seen multiple guys get over 70,000 miles out of, sets of these tires on Jeeps, lightweight Jeeps like JKs, JLs, and that kind of thing. So they wear fantastic. I mean, you notice that they're so popular these days that they're factory equipment on a lot of manufacturers' off-road packages. So that just is a testament to how great they are. The only negative that I've ever really seen and witnessed with these myself is that sometimes they can be kind of hard to balance. I mean, that's sort of been an issue with Goodyear tires for 2 or 3 decades now. Even way back in the 90s, they had a lot of trouble with some of their truck tires as far as, being able to balance them and so forth. So sometimes they can take a little bit of excess weight, but that's not always a problem with them, just something that I've kind of noticed. Otherwise, though, I mean, I really think you can't go wrong with this tire. If you're one of those guys who's kind of on the fence and you don't know, if you want to buy a mud terrain tire, do you want to buy an all-terrain tire, what should you go with? You don't really want a super aggressive, loud, knobby tire that's going to be real heavy, just because maybe 2 or 3 times a year you're going to go off-road. But you also don't want a really mild all-terrain tire that's going to leave you stranded if you get in mud. You just don't know what to do. A tire like this one is your bet. This is your best bet because it's going to give you everything that you need. I really like this Goodyear Wrangler DuraTrac. This particular tire is not going to go on my truck, but I like them so well that I may end up getting a set of these for the Frontier. I might run another set of them just to kind of give them another shake all these years later and see how they do. Anyway, like I said, I want you guys to give me some of your experiences with this tire. I know a lot of you've probably been running this tire. It'd be interesting to hear from you how many miles you get out of them and what your experience has been on and off road with them. But for now, I'm out of here. Appreciate you guys watching. Goodyear Wrangler DuraTrac. Still the best all-around tire on the market. Thanks.